My name is Pedro Cruz, and today I'm here to talk about my personal story. A story of how Puerto Rico suffered one of the worst hurricanes in history and how it became my personal mission to help create technologies that will help mitigate natural disasters like the hurricanes. So, I live here in Puerto Rico. That was Hurricane Maria on September 20th, 2017. A few weeks before, Hurricane Irma had passed and already weakened our infrastructure. Let me say that I did not prepare enough for both hurricanes. I only had 3 days of food, 3 gallons of water, and a third of gas in my tank, in my car. So I thought that Hurricane Maria wasn't going to pass. Clearly not, as you can see. It passed directly through us. So at around 8 p.m., Hurricane Maria made landfall on the island, and the winds were like never seen before. I was at my 1-bedroom apartment, and the windows started to rattle all night, and at one point, they burst open, letting water flood in. So I got my shoelaces, actually, was able to tie them up, and luckily I was fine. So my apartment is made with concrete. That's not like the rest of the houses in Puerto Rico. A lot of houses are made of wood and cannot withstand more than a tropical storm. So after the hurricane subsided around 4 p.m., I turned on my phone and no signal. I tried to call my mom, didn't work. My dad, nothing. So I was worried, naturally, especially about my grandma and my Tidiana. So both of them have medical conditions, and as the worry and anxiety built up, I could not wait. Even though it was unsafe to go out and venture off, especially I only had 1/3 of gas, I took the risk. So this is what Puerto Rico looked like. It was basically, in many places, you cannot pass through. We had utility poles down, electric wires everywhere, floods, landslides. But I was able to make it to my parents' house. My mom and my dad, they were fine. My mom first hugged me, kissed me, but then scolded me for coming over there. She's a Latina mother, so I think I could have sworn that she was reaching for the chancleta, actually. So she's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Well, I had to make sure that you were fine, and she was. So afterwards, we had to look for our grandma. She lived around 10 minutes away, but it was almost impossible to get to her because of the floods, because of this. And basically, we were able to reach her. Unfortunately, I could not pass through. I took out my drone, flew it over her house. Everything was destroyed, especially her garden. And about 5 minutes later, she came outside, waved, smiled, and she was fine. So that was not the same thing for the rest of the island. So this is how Puerto Rico looked like. We had landslides, houses, people started writing help, SOS, on the roofs of houses. It was very difficult the first couple days and weeks. So think about this. No power, no cell signal, no food or water. It was very, very difficult for everyone. And as the weeks passed by, days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months, I'm very humbled for all the help that reached the island. We got hundreds of thousands of people donating food, water, supplies. But one of the big problems was transportation. Transporting the food and water in these conditions was sometimes not viable. Many times the food would stick at the ports rotting because there was no one to transport them. So that was the main problem. Imagine trying to coordinate, plan relief for 3.5 million people. So as the government, the military, and nonprofit organizations scouted the island in helicopters, they struggled to deliver. It was a huge problem. People in the country and rural areas suffered, and one area that was heavily impacted after the hurricane was Humacao, in the east area of the island. The people in this community were so frustrated that They saw the helicopters coming, but no one came. So we saw messages like this. This was 5 days after the hurricane. It says, we're in Nahuabo, estamos vivos, we're alive. Bro, saw your kids, we're okay. On the right, you can see the remains of a huge basketball court that had collapsed. So this is another example, SOS, agua en comida, SOS, water and food. People painted this on the streets, and here's one more. So communities really were resilient, and they helped each other in these moments. But I thought about this problem, this challenge, and a way to solve this. How can we let this happen? So after a few months, unfortunately, my grandmother passed away due to the blackouts in the hospitals, due to the lack of transportation. She couldn't get medicine on time. So this is her garden. It's now very beautiful, but this is for her. So life wasn't really good for me. Very depressing. As a developer, we need electricity, we need Wi-Fi. Luckily, I was able to work out of a co-working space, but this is how I worked every night after we got stabilized. So my grandma told me that we have to have hope, but we also have to take action. And that's where this came in, changed my life. This is the Call for Code movement, started by actually IBM. And they came about a year after the hurricane to do a hackathon on the island and to organize developers to create problems. I participated in other hackathons in the past, and this one was really dear to my heart. So I went to the hackathon, and basically the problem I was trying to solve was the SOS messages. I thought about that, and thinking about that, we have many problems after a natural disaster. First, it's kind of inefficient to assess people door to door, especially when sometimes you can't move around. There's duplicated efforts. We have the military, the government, multiple NGOs trying to assess the situation, but they don't really share the data. So there's a long turnover to collect this data. So I thought, okay, how about we create an aerial scout for first responders? Basically, a drone could go over all the floods, could go over all the damage, the debris, the vegetation, and scan the area, capture it, and give that information to first responders. So at the hackathon, I created DroneAid. So DroneAid is an application that uses a drone to collect images, but does not require a drone. It can also work with satellite imagery. It can work also with social media photos. A lot of people saw those SOS messages on social media. So the drone would capture the images, then send that report, like detect SOS messages, and report that to first responders. One of my challenges was when I was creating the code, I was using a software called object character recognition. So today we see handwriting, we can detect it. Banks use it to scan the checks. This is standard software. But when I tried to use the software, I couldn't get the algorithm running well with my handwriting. So I thought of a way that we could standardize this. If we want this to work in other countries and different languages, we need a universal way to tell people about their needs. So for example, instead of using water, people could draw with chalk on the ground or paint, or have some kits where they could put on the floor and the drone could scan them. Water, food, medical attention. So this is a screenshot of how it works. After a hurricane or a natural disaster, the drone would fly over, detect SOS messages, and then put that on a map for first responders. And this all I'm making open source and open to the community. So this is from the hackathon. Luis Torres from Engine 4, where the hackathon was hosted, was nice enough to sponsor a banner. And in this banner, I was able to show the prototype, and it worked. So I ended up getting first place at that hackathon, and it really changed my mission, my personal mission. Afterwards, I got hired by IBM from the hackathon, and now I get to travel and speak about the mitigation of natural disasters. The winners of Call for Code is a global competition to help mitigate natural disasters. They came to Puerto Rico. They're called Project Owl to do a test study and do a trial. So their technology helps people connect. They have these devices called ducks, and you can see them on the left on the table right next to the laptop. These ducks help people connect and send information to first responders like, hey, I'm here in this area, we need food. So through open source technology, we can really make a difference. I helped them scout the areas that were heavily impacted in Puerto Rico, and they came also to a hackathon that was hosted 2 weeks ago, actually. So here on the left was my first hackathon. It was in 2015. I created an application called Epi Alert. It helps detect epilepsy attacks. In that moment, we were using the Microsoft Band. This was before Apple had the SOS feature on their Apple Watch. So that was my first hackathon, and I participated in a few more, and I was really inspired by the movement of going to a place, forgetting about all the potential problems of scalability, and just creating a solution in 24 hours. This year, actually 2 weeks ago, I organized the same Call for Code hackathon I participated last year. And this year, it was my mission to pass the baton to the next person. So this is Puerto Rico now. Well, about a year later, Puerto Rico is green again. We still have problems. We still have a lot of work to do. But we were able to lift ourselves up. So what is my message for you here today? Necessity is the mother of all invention, right? We face hurricanes in our life, hurricanes that completely disrupt our daily lives. But you have the power to make a change. With this conference, I hope you attend the workshops and talks with an open mind and absorb everything. Share with your peers and take action on what you learn here today. Whether you build solutions for natural disasters and save lives with what you create, or you build something fun that brings joy into people's lives. Whatever it is, you've taken the first step here. You showed up. Now it's time to take action. So thanks to Ron for the invitation. Thank you everyone for listening. That's my Twitter handle if you want to connect. And I look forward to talking to you around. Thank you.